I watched a TED Talk last night about population growth. It was from 2010, so it's a little old, but the idea still remains. And the gentleman used small plastic storage containers to illustrate his point. Excuse me. Excuse me. He was a Swedish man, and he got his storage containers from IKEA, so that was funny. Why? I don't know, because it is. But he was illustrating how in 1960, when he was in school, the population of the world was 3 billion people. 3 billion. It just reached it in 1960. 1 billion of those were classified as the I guess you would say the okay. I'm not sure what the word he used. His accent was very hard to understand. But 1 billion people were in the position where they felt strong enough and secure enough to do some family planning. You're talking about 1 to 2 children per family or per woman. And their goal, he uses the point, their goal is to be able to buy a car at that point to transport their family and whatnot. While the remaining 2 billion people are wondering if they will be able to have enough to eat, and their goal is to buy a pair of shoes. And he's not saying that everybody wanted to buy a pair of shoes and everybody wanted to buy a car. He's using this as an illustration of these are the people that are walking, these are the people that are driving, and there's a drastic difference in the ability to transport yourself either by foot or by vehicle. So then he fast forwarded to 2010, which is when the video was taking place, and added an additional, how many did he add? I think it was another 3 billion. So in 2010, we were looking at about 6 billion people, which I don't think was completely accurate, but it's beside the point. And he said, so the initial 1 billion from 1960 had now moved far enough along, they were no longer searching for a car to drive. They were now exploring the idea of flying and going on these vacations. And again, just illustrating the point that when you fly somewhere, you get there a lot faster and you progress at a greater rate and get to your destination sooner. But the 2 billion that had been trying to get to the shoes, the shoe billion, I should say, had now progressed to the car. And even an additional 1 billion with them. But, no, I take that back. He added 4 billion, which made the population 7 billion. The initial first were now with the airplane. The second were now with the car. 2 billion were buying a bicycle, which was between the foot, or the shoes in the car. And then there were still a couple billion people at the shoe level. And he used this to illustrate that there's a huge gap between walking and driving. But then once we grew the population and we had this new addition of the flight and the bicycle, while yes, there are still people on the extremes, the very well off and the extremely poor, there's no longer a gap between the groups. You now have walking, biking, driving, flying, which makes sense. And that's actually an illustration that I use in my classroom all the time when we talk about our ability to do work, specifically with math, but it applies to any of the subject areas. I said in math, there are people in the classroom that can drive, there are people that need to ride their bike, and there are people that still need to walk. Meaning, if you're doing a multiplication problem, some people instantly know that 5 times 7 is 35. Boom, done. Those are the drivers. There are some people that need to figure out, okay, 5 times 1 is 5, 5 times 2 is 10, 5 times 3 is 15, and so on and so on and so on until they get to 7. Count by 5s. Those are the people that are biking. And then finally, you have the people that are walking that still need to realize that, okay, they need to write out 7 5 times. 7 plus 7 plus 7 plus 7 plus 7. Or they need to draw out a picture. They need to draw 7 groups of 5 dots or something like that. And it takes longer, but they still arrive at the correct answer. Those are the people that are walking. So we have walkers, bikers, and drivers. And some may even get to the point where they're flying, but really, I mean, if 7 times 5 is 35, I guess the flying version would then be able to relate that 6 times 7 is just 7 more, or 5 times 8 is just 5 more than what 5 times 7 was. But I really enjoyed his illustration, one, because I've used it before without ever seeing his talk, but two, because it related population and my idea of math. And I can't deny that there's a similarity between the low end of his population, being the walkers, the poorer end, as it were, and the people who are the walkers in math class. There's a correlation there, whether we want to admit it or not. And I hope this isn't coming across as offensive, but the people who have more resources and a better home life, parents that work full-time jobs and come home and help them with their homework and have a good meal and their house is clean and all these things, those are the people that generally perform better in school. Not always. There are always a few outliers. But the people who are going home by themselves every day, who have to worry about taking care of brother and sister before doing their homework, who aren't sure if it's going to be a good home-cooked meal or they're going to have to throw a TV dinner in the microwave, those are the people that perform less well. And again, not always. There are some few outliers, the people on both sides who don't match either description. But I found it really interesting. Now, he went on to say that by the year 2050, the population will cap, because finally those people that are at the poorer range, the shoe range, will eventually make it at least to the bicycle range and get to the point where they're doing family planning and all these things. And there's a lot of statistical analysis, but essentially he said by 2050 the population will cap. We will not be experiencing any more population growth. And I think that has to do with my talk yesterday afternoon about innovation. Is eventually innovation and advancement in technology is going to become so prevalent across the entire globe, even in those third world countries, even in those grass hut villages, that people can't help but be involved and get access to more information more quickly. It's got to happen eventually. And his year was 2050. I don't know if that's still realistic, because we're only about 30 years from that right now. But a lot can happen in 30 years across the planet. And it'll be really interesting when, or if it does, how that changes the group dynamic. Will we all reach a point of success where we feel like we need to constantly be pining for more? Or will there still be the people that are completely ignorant to what's available to them and be totally satisfied, and we'll still have those giant gaps in not only population, but also education? I don't know, something to think about. I'll see you this afternoon.